Hey, what's up guys? It's Tom here, and I'm here with Jim, and we're here to do our best 5 films of 2011 so far, heading into the awards season of releases. So let's get down to it.
My number 5 is Captain America: The First Adventure, starring Chris Evans, Hallie Atwell, Hugo Weaving, Tommy Lee Jones, and Stanley Tucci, in the best Marvel film since Iron Man. Besides being just an enjoyable superhero film, it works as an homage to 1940s serial adventures featuring good guys, bad guys, a gee-whiz sense of humor, and unabashed patriotism. It also happens to feature a pretty convincing romance, though it doesn't have the same kind of spark that Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow had in Iron Man. A fun movie in a time of one too many tormented heroes.
In at number 5 for me, personally, it's kind of a cop-out, really. You guys might get pissed at this, but I really just could not decide, so sue me. There's going to be a tie here. The first film is Insidious, which, if I had a gun to my head, might be the film I'd leave out, but it needs to be mentioned because it hopefully marks the return of the genius side of James Wan. His Saw film was really good. He really made a great horror movie that really scared the crap out of me there. And then he made Dead Silence, which really made me think he was a turd. And for South Park fans, it was the equivalent of watching a turd in a microwave. With Insidious, he directs a truly creepy supernatural film with the best acting of any of his films, with Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne together. Point blank, I needed to have the only film that creeped me out since the original Paranormal Activity on the list. The film that it is tied with is the Marvel hit Thor. At first I was skeptical, but this film was a blast. The cocky arrogance of Thor was done so perfectly by Chris Hemsworth, and Natalie Portman is so good. There was no way the film could fail. Stellan Skarsgård, who practically disappeared after Good Will Hunting, is back to significance in this film, and Kat Dennings provides some pretty good comic relief also. Really good family fun.
My number 4 is Source Code, directed by Duncan Jones, son of David Bowie, and director of the film Moon. Source Code is my favorite kind of film, a genre film that is exciting and entertaining, but still has interesting ideas and themes. The performances are strong across the board, led by a charismatic Jake Gyllenhaal, who undergoes the source code technology again and again, living the last 8 minutes of another man's life in order to find the bomber of a train. For a first studio picture, it's still a modest one for Duncan Jones, and the son of the man who fell to Earth shows a lot of promise as a filmmaker.
My number 4 film is Super 8. J.J. Abrams' second film is even better than his first, Star Trek. This sci-fi film is a little Stand By Me meets Close Encounters meets E.T. A group of friends set out to make a zombie flick together when a train crash occurs nearby. The train's carrying something very dangerous. Or is it? Produced by Steven Spielberg, there's definitely some Spielbergian fingerprints on this sucker, especially in the closing sequence. Abrams proved sci-fi is his forte, and I cannot wait to see what else this man can do.
My number 3 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I have to admit I was kind of disappointed to see the series come to a close after 10 years, but the conclusion couldn't be any more satisfying. Those frustrated with the pace of Part 1 will find this far more entertaining. Clocking around 130 minutes, it is actually the shortest of the series, and at times it does feel a bit rushed, but in a summer of bloated sequels like Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon, Deathly Hallows Part 2 never overstays its welcome. It hits all the right notes and stays firmly in my number 3 spot.
My number 3 is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Probably my biggest surprise of the year. I didn't find the trailers too impressive, but the film itself was great. James Franco as a scientist, Frida Pinto as a hot zookeeper, John Lithgow as a father with dementia, and Brian Cox and Tom Felton / Draco Malfoy as asshole chimp abusers. And Andy Serkis is a boss as Caesar. As realistic as a chimp rising film can get, and as interesting and fun even when there is not the utmost action on the screen. Even the boring parts are never boring.
My number 2 is Cedar Rapids, starring Ed Helms as an insurance agent who is sent to represent his company at a regional conference in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. There he meets fellow insurance agents like the Crazy Joan, the Loudmouth Dean, and Ronald, who does a pretty convincing Omar from the HBO program The Wire. Despite premiering at the Sundance Film Festival, Cedar Rapids is an accessible film. It's hilarious, raunchy, and surprisingly sweet, following a naive man who has some interesting experiences and learns a thing or two. This got a great reaction from the audience I saw it with, and if there's any comedy to see this year starring Ed Helms, it's Cedar Rapids, not Hangover 2.
My number 2 film is The Adjustment Bureau. Matt Damon and Emily Blunt sizzle on the screen together with romantic chemistry in this love at first sight, forbidden love romance. A great film with questions of fate and free will, featuring 2 of the better performances this year, and certainly the most chemistry between 2 actors so far this year. I don't know what the Bureau was thinking. You can't stop Matt Damon! Matt Damon.
And my number 1 favorite film of the year so far is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Props to 20th Century Fox this year for reviving not 1, but 2 franchises this year. The first with X-Men First Class, and now a new installment of the Planet of the Apes franchise. The movie favors story and characters over just action sequences, but don't worry, the Golden Gate Bridge sequence does not disappoint. The visual effects are spectacular, the film is well-paced, and Andy Serkis is terrific as Caesar, the eventual leader of the apes.
My number 1 is Captain America. When I saw trailers for all the superhero films this year, I predicted, and Jim can confirm this, that Captain America would be the best of them all. Lo and behold, it is. And to me, the best film so far this year. Great origin story, great humor. Chris Evans deserved a showcase like this, after he was the only one to make Fantastic Four watchable besides seeing Jessica Alba half naked. Hugo Weaving does it again in he's one of the most underrated action actors, and he's great as a villain. Captain America is a blast, just like the very first Iron Man, and it's patriotic. If you don't love it, you're not American. Alright, so those are our top 5 films so far this year. Stay tuned, because sometime next week we should have our worst 5 films up on the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe, comment. What are your top 5 films so far this year? Obviously, as with any top 5, these things could shuffle around with rewatches as they come out on DVD. That's why it's not final yet, but so far this year, these are the 5 best films that Jim and I have seen, and I look forward to hearing yours.